So next up is a wonderful creative spirit in the form of Alistair Cotterill, who's the EMEA creative lead for Instagram's creative shop. Most of you will probably know that Instagram was a visual social startup, but now belongs to Facebook. What's exciting about Alistair's talk today is to provide us a grounding for how the visual media formats are increasingly benefiting brands in telling these stories throughout the digital media landscape. Purposeful brands with great stories are meaningful, and they endure in a world of parity products and services. We've all experienced the enormous wasteland of digital content as brands try to befriend users through social and tech-driven platforms. So let's all learn about meaningful content from a true innovator. Warm welcome, Alistair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this going to work? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Hi, I'm Alistair, or Al Says, Instagram, if you want to follow me, feel free. I normally stand up on these stages and show people lots of pretty pictures, and it normally goes quite well. I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to talk about right now, because I'm just completely floored and humbled to hear from both of you guys and from everyone who's spoken to date. So I need to figure out how I kind of make this more relevant, because I tend to spend my days talking to our biggest brand partners around the world about Instagram, about the opportunity, about how they should think about bringing their stories and their brands to life on our platform. Before I kind of talk about Instagram, I might take a quick step back. I've been overseeing advertising creative at Instagram for about a year now. I've been at Facebook for coming up to 5 years. And when I interview people to come and work at Facebook, I kind of always ask the same kind of weird question, I guess. And I talk about how Mark Zuckerberg's vision is around making the world more open and connected. And that drives absolutely everything we do. So when we buy companies, whether that be a messaging company, whether that be a company that circles drones at 30,000 feet above India and Africa to beam internet down to people and kind of connect generations of people to the internet for free for the first time, whether that's buying a virtual reality company. It's like, what the fuck we're doing buying a virtual reality company? You put it on, you suddenly realize how you can connect people wherever they are around the world through this really immersive experience. And what does that mean for education wherever you are around the world? How can we kind of transport people, no matter where you are, to a lecture theatre in Harvard or to kind of the Louvre or wherever it might be? And so this idea of kind of connecting people, making the world more open and connected, absolutely drives everything that our organisation does. And I'll talk about Instagram and the role that that plays in a little bit. But I kind of use this in interviews. I ask people, I spend my days working with brands and in the world of advertising, love it or hate it. But I talk to people and say we kind of connect 1.4 billion people, real people, individuals around the planet every single month just through Facebook alone, let alone through WhatsApp and all these other applications we're developing. And I say, what does that mean? What would you do with that? What is the potential that that can provide? And when I talk to people, yes, our day-to-day job is in advertising and building brands, and we're a small part of the overall operation. If the response back is, well, we can kind of advertise to people, and then that isn't a very good start to the interview. It's not particularly going very well at that point. And it's kind of actually, we don't necessarily know right now, like we're doing some amazing things through internet.org and other kind of initiatives, but the potential that we're kind of sitting on and the potential of making the world more open and connected, I think personally starts to maybe show a part of the answer to a lot of the questions that have been coming through the course of today. It's not necessarily, most of us, I guess, work with brands and businesses, and we can still take a top-down approach, and we should do things differently, and we should kind of talk about things differently. But the power of connecting people, the power of actually facilitating just those connections and bringing people together and enabling your video to go to 1 million people, kind of like that. I think that's where a lot of the solutions may come for the challenges that we're facing and have heard about today. So, yes, I can be an arsehole in interviews, but it's kind of like where that's, I think, the opportunity that social media more broadly, the internet more broadly, mobile phones, technology is kind of creating, and is kind of why I go to work every day and what excites me. And so hopefully that kind of puts a bit of context about what I'll talk about now, which is the kind of brands and pretty pictures. So that's me on Instagram. I spend my days talking with our biggest partners around the world about Instagram specifically, and about kind of what is happening here. You know, we are I think we're one of the, if not the fastest growing mobile app ever. We're now at 300 million people every month using our platform. We just announced yesterday, actually, I was in a press briefing, that we kind of hit 14 million people every month in the UK alone. And we got to where we are now 2 years quicker than we did at Facebook. The trajectory is really, really strong. And so it's kind of interesting kind of why people are coming and using our platform. We weren't necessarily the first photo sharing website, or application. We weren't necessarily the strongest kind of originally. So what makes Instagram special? And kind of what role is it playing now in people's lives and in culture? Because if we can understand why people are coming and what role it plays in people's lives, then we can really understand kind of what their expectations are for when we introduce brands into this environment. Instead of talking about numbers, I often talk about this, which is the cover of Time magazine recently. So in the trouble in Baltimore, the image that ended up on the cover of Time magazine, a kind of hallowed kind of space for photojournalism, for press photography. This image was actually taken from Instagram, and was an Instagrammer who captured this shot because the journalists weren't able to be there. They weren't there at that moment in time. And so Kevin Systrom, one of the co-founders at Instagram, he talks about how his vision is around enabling people to capture and share the world's moments. And so what flows through Instagram every day is the world as it's happening. And it's been able to kind of transport you into these moments where traditional media wouldn't have been able to get you previously. I said I'd talk about lots of kind of pretty pictures, so I'll show some now. When I talk to, or when we kind of do research groups and talk to people, we try and understand, again, kind of what are people getting from this platform. And two things kind of come through. One is around expressing yourself, so people see this as a platform to express themselves creatively. And the other is around discovering and being inspired. And so kind of on average, half the people connect to on Instagram, they don't necessarily know, which is kind of different to Facebook. But they want to be visually inspired. They connect with artists and photographers and designers. And what do they get from this connection, this inspiration? Often what comes through is this idea of being transported somewhere. So being transported somewhere as it's happening, whether that's around the world through current events, whether that's just to another perspective on life. So a couple of people I follow that I get this feeling from are GDAX. All these people we're following, if you're on Instagram, want to kind of follow along. GDAX is a Tibetan monk who is massive on Instagram. You can kind of follow the life, the ebbs and flows of a monk in Tibet through this feeling of connection you can have with him. You can be transported to the foothills of the Himalayas. Or Pete Souza, who is Obama's press photographer. And he gives you a really candid snapshot into the world of the president that you won't get through any other media outlet. And so you get, this is Obama patting or pushing Joe Biden out of the office. Sorry, all these were taken this morning as well. So these are kind of, this is happening now, this is fresh. This is what Obama was doing kind of fairly recently. It can be, through The Economist, kind of a swimming pool in China. All of a sudden I'm transported to what it feels like to be kind of squished within, going swimming in a swimming pool over in China. Or it can be kind of taken to above the clouds through kind of one of the key UK Instagrammers I follow. Or under the stars through Polostov, who are a camping company in the US. It can be kind of taken to a movie set as the film is being shot, not 6 months later or a year later when you see the film coming out, not even the red carpet and all the snapshots. How can I be transported to the film as it's being shot and the director's point of view? It can be a sudden feeling of kind of isolation or of kind of emptiness just for a single powerful image. Again, this is all from this morning. What we know about how people use Instagram is millennials if you will. Kind of younger millennials use Instagram 10 times a day. And what we know is they're jumping on and off, on and off, on and off. And when you're on Instagram or any of these services, any of these social networks, they're feed-based services. So people are jumping on their phones, scrolling through, seeing what's going on, jumping off, jumping on, scrolling through, seeing what's going on, jumping off. And so you could be queuing for a bus, you could be sat here listening to me talk or whatever. Like, it's kind of in those little snapshots or those little moments that you can kind of inspire someone, take someone somewhere, transport them to a different world. And so, have I got any more? Oh yeah, the last one was John. So John is a guy, he's a designer at Instagram. He designs Instagram, as you do. And so he's on holiday in Arles in France right now. And so like it's been transported to kind of his world as he's seeing what's happening, he's enjoying his life. This is just a snapshot of the UK Instagram community, a bunch of really big Instagrammers. And I work quite closely with the community team at Instagram. So the first employee outside of the US is a girl called Hannah, who was in London, and she set up the kind of community team in EMEA. And she knows these guys really well, and I spend time with these guys and talk to these guys and try and understand kind of, when I talked before about we weren't necessarily the first or the best mobile kind of photo sharing app, what has set us apart is the community. The community has been at the core of how we've approached everything we've done, from kind of putting Instagram in the hands of people before we even launched it and getting their feedback, to now kind of just being really kind of considerate of what role Instagram plays in people's lives, and how they connect through Instagram and come together, and they go on Insta meets and Insta walks that they organize, the community organizes, we don't. And so from my point of view, when I'm talking to brands and businesses and want to kind of discuss how are you going to come to life in this space? How are you going to make sense in this space? How are you going to add something of value to people in this space, and not disrupt or distract or break it? Because that's the old digital model. The old digital model was about disruption and distraction and grab someone's attention and drive them over here. The new model in this feed-based economy and feed-based environment is drop in, add value, drop out, drop in, add value, drop out. And over time, you can start building and telling your story and delivering something of real value. So how do we do that with brands and businesses? As I say, I work across all verticals, lots of different kind of big, scary corporations. This is Great Arsenal, again, another Instagrammer. And just picking one of those guys out of that kind of collage, just from this snapshot, you get a feel for what he is about. This is his visual voice, his world, his visual language. So when we're talking to brands, I kind of talk to them and ask them, what is your world? What is your language? What is your story that you have to tell? And most brands look at you like a blank kind of face back at you. It's like, well, we sell this, or we do that, or we're doing this cool event, wouldn't it be great? And we can tell everyone. It's like, actually, let's strip it all back and get down to kind of your purpose. What is unique about you that people can connect with? Because this is such a kind of emotional, personal experience. You know, I often with clients tell them to get their phones out, unlock them, hand them to the person to the left or right, and people just get freaked out. They can't handle it because it's like, even though I know you really well and I trust you, I'm not going to hand you my open, unlocked, revealed phone. It's such an emotional space. And so kind of when we come to be a brand and appear in this space, we need to get it right. And people are so highly attuned in this environment to bullshit and to inauthenticity, if that's a word, that being true to yourself and understanding who you are to begin with is absolutely kind of foundation to why you should be here. Why should someone even care that you're here? Why should someone pay you attention and not X you out and not kind of give you bad comments or whatever? So who are you? What have you got to say? And then how do you present yourself? Are kind of what we take brands through. I'll show you a few examples of people that kind of get this right. A couple which are kind of obvious, and then I'll just end on a couple which are slightly less obvious, but hopefully showing the way for a lot of the work we're currently doing to make sure when we introduce brands into our platform, because we want it to be a big and successful company, and we make money for advertising to then fund kind of all the other stuff that we do. How do we do it in a really respectful and considerate way that delivers against brand business objectives, absolutely, but also against the community and the experience on Instagram. Burberry do great in the digital sphere. Again, talk about Burberry, people sometimes roll their eyes, but they are very good. What Burberry do fantastically is they create a brand world, an environment. They talk about kind of 4 things consistently. The weather, it's at the core of their DNA. You know, they make trench coats and the rest of it to kind of protect you from the English weather. So they talk about that quite a lot. They talk about music and their fashion shows and the coat, the trench. And they have these content topics and they talk about them regularly and creates a cadence for what they communicate. But through this, you start to get a feeling for their brand world, what they care about, who they are as a business, who they are as a company, that stems all the way back through their heritage. And then they do it through kind of a consistent tone, a consistent kind of color palette. Again, most brands are completely schizophrenic. Most brands, when you look at their Instagram profiles, you can see the internal departments squabbling against one another. You can see global and local. You can see one agency versus another agency. It's like all there to see. So a lot of the time, it's like, let's go back to the core. Who are you? What do you want to talk about? And how can you communicate in a really consistent, compelling manner? So these guys, comes naturally to them. Nike, again, is a kind of fairly obvious, well-talked about brand. But again, it's kind of, they talk about a range of different products and the product plays a role there. What really interests them is the kind of idea of kind of movement and getting people out and inspiring people to get out there and do stuff. So Nike talk about, at the core of their business, they believe that if you have a body, you are an athlete. And that's at the very core of their business, and that kind of flows through everything they do. And so when it comes to Instagram, it's like visually, how can we inspire people to be an athlete no matter who you are? And again, that just then gives them a North Star that everything can kind of ladder up to and point towards. I'll talk quickly about Herschel. Herschel are a backpack company from Canada, very cool. Again, they believe that a great life is a life well traveled. And so again, everything they communicate, everything they put through their Instagram is to inspire people to go and travel and to discover and to get out there and explore. And again, that through the way that they treat it visually tells me everything I need to know about that company, what they stand for, and why I should care enough to go buy their backpack over another backpack. It's not about capacity, it's about buying into their vision. Last 2, because I'm getting the get off sign, no worries. Philips has already been mentioned. Until I saw Philips, I thought they just did light bulbs and washing machines. Through Instagram, they talk about a better life, and then they have series of bits of content. They did a whole series where they partner with people to bring the idea of light to life through Instagram. Last one went live yesterday, so I need to put it in, is some work we're doing with Barclays, and they are just solely focusing on great ambitious young entrepreneurs across the country, and that's what they're going to bring to life and tell their stories through this platform. Right, I'll shut up and go. Thank you, cheers.